Hey guys, this is going to be a bit of a shorter video, but I wanted to talk about this one particular topic that has been trending a lot, and it's really piqued my interest lately. I'm here to talk about red meat. Specifically, I'm talking about beef and grass-fed versus grain-fed meat. So what is the difference between the two? And this can get really confusing, and I was actually talking to my friend about this earlier today. So one of my friends was going shopping for burgers, and they wanted to get grass-fed but grass-finished beef. And on the package that they found, it only said 100% grass-fed meat. So when you look at that, a reasonable person would assume that that cow that beef came from, its entire life, it only ate grass, right? Because at 100% grass-fed, I don't know what else that would mean. But there's a difference between grass-fed and grass-finished meat. So finishing is basically after a cow's lived most of its life, and before it's going to get slaughtered, they finish the cow. And a lot of times, they finish the cow with grain. And this is called grain finished. And this is how a lot of the meat that we eat has been finished. Now, why would anyone want to finish a cow with grain? Why would anyone want to switch a cow that's been eating grass its whole life to grain before it gets slaughtered? Well, the only reason anyone would do this is for money. Because when you feed a cow grain, it starts to fatten the cow up, and it can also give it a different flavor. So when you fatten the cow up, that means more meat for you, and that means you can sell more meat, and in turn make more money. But lately, people have been advocating for only eating grass-fed and grass-finished meat. Now here, I'm going to go back to the point I was saying before. Just because something says it's 100% grass-fed, it doesn't mean that it was grass-finished. If something was grass-finished, it would actually say grass-fed and grass-finished meat. Now, why do they make this so confusing? I'm not sure. But why should this matter to you, right? Because at the end of the day, you're still eating beef. You're still going to eat the same animal. No matter what the animal ate, you're just eating the meat, right? Why does it matter? One reason that a lot of people are against eating meat is strictly for the environment. And the reason is that when these cows are all together and they're about to get slaughtered, this is terrible for the environment. And the reason is these cows will start to release methane gas into the environment because they're all herded together and they're all farting, which is methane gas. And also their manure or their other droppings are very toxic, and this is just terrible for the environment. Now the interesting thing is grass-fed meat, or cows that are never put into this grain-fed system where they're all kind of herded together to get fattened up. Cows that are instead allowed to be on the farms and allowed to graze and move around, this is actually beneficial for the environment. And one is the manure of the cows actually help the soil, because the cow's droppings are actually giving the soil nutrients, and this is allowing life to form, or plants to live in that soil. And also, when cows are grazing and they're allowed to move on a farm, they're also spreading that soil around. So not only is this not bad for the environment compared to grain-fed, which cows that are in that type of environment, it's actually terrible for the environment. This is actually beneficial for the environment, right? Because everything in the grass-fed and the grass-finished scenario, everything is natural. Now, another point that people who are pushing for grass-fed meat say is that grass-fed and grass-finished meat is way better for you than grain-fed meat. Now, this is one thing where there has really not been any research on this. There has been a ton of research on red meat, and red meat causing a ton of health problems like cancer, heart disease, high cholesterol, you name it. But all these studies have not distinguished the difference between grain-fed and grass-fed meat. So this is one reason why you'll hear people like carnivores, for example, say that beef is actually very good for you. And it's not just carnivores, a lot of other people have been saying this is just one example. But they're specifically saying that grass-fed meat is good for you. And the main thing that they say is all these studies that are saying that red meat is bad for you, they're focusing on grain-fed meat. They're not focusing on grass-fed meat. Now, the problem with this is there also isn't any studies, specifically long-term studies, that are focusing on grass-fed meat. So just because there aren't any studies showing anything regarding specifically grass-fed meat, I know there's studies on grain-fed meat, it doesn't mean that it's good for you, right? Because we don't know for sure yet. We know that it could be better than grain-fed meat, but we don't know that for sure. Now, what do I think? Well, I do think that grass-fed meat is a much safer option than grain-fed meat. And the reason is not only are these cows getting fattened up when they eat this grain, they're also more likely to eat all these pesticides that are sprayed. They're more likely to have antibiotics in their diet. They're more likely to have added hormones in their diet. And the problem is when you're eating that meat, all those hormones, all those pesticides, you are consuming that as well. Now, when you're comparing this to a cow that has eaten grass its entire life and has been finished, or basically until its last breath, it has been eating grass, this seems a lot healthier, right? It seems a lot more natural. So if it were me, I would always choose to eat 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef. But I wouldn't support the claim that this is all you should be eating or that this is healthy for you. I do think it's much better than grain-fed beef, but we just don't know enough yet to say how healthy this is. But I do think in the years to come, there will be more research on this and more research either supporting or against this. I just think it's gonna take a little bit more time. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.